The Express.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Express podcast. We are pumped to have all-star opening day starter and stud left-handed pitcher Justin Steele on this episode. Today, Steele and I discuss what an awesome story he has growing up in Mississippi and his tenure with the Cubs. We talk through Shota's impressive start to his MLB career and why there's an uptick in arm injuries. Hope y'all enjoy. No, we welcome back to the Express. If you don't know the origin, the Express, our all-star team was named the Express.
Hell yeah.
Our other buddy that's on it, Mitch, was with us as well, so it kind of segues perfectly into the pod. But appreciate you coming on.
Thanks.
Justin Steele, for everybody that doesn't know, excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. Big fan. Love listening. I'm even Ian Happ's podcast. I love listening to our teammates' podcast. Always good way to get information from me.
Yeah,
I like it.
Well, I mean, it's funny, and we can just start rolling right into it. Like even the other day, you coming up to me and being like, just talking about things that you appreciated that we were talking about on the pod, just about like identity and like how we all battle through that in the professional ranks. I think, people, I would say, worldwide battle with identity at times, but even more so when you're on a public stage and your performance is what other people view you as versus like we battle with that because we want to do so good, but at the same time, like we also know where we stand,
Yeah, the hard part is like when you yourself start looking at yourself through that perspective as well. When in reality, kind of like what you talked about on that podcast, is like at the end of the day, what matters is like how Jesus and God looks at you, and like he doesn't care about your playing career. Like, yeah, he's blessed us with it and stuff, but at the end of the day, he cares about the person you are, how you treat others, and those kind of things. So you got to learn to separate the two.
And it's so challenging because separating you want to do well because that's what's gotten us to this point. We want to perform well. Like there's nobody that wants to win more than we want to win. There's nobody that wants to pitch better than him. There's nobody that wants to make plays and get hits as much as I do, or anybody else on the team for that matter. But as soon as you start allowing that to like creep in to say like I'm less than because I didn't perform well, or I'm more than because I did play well, like I feel like that's such the roller coaster of life that you don't want to ride, but it's really hard to separate it. So for you, what has been kind of like the key for you to not get into that?
I think what helps me is that I find it more comfortable to evaluate my outings and stuff when I look at it through the perspective like, God doesn't really care about my performance on the field that much. Like I said, he blessed me with the ability and stuff and taking advantage of it and stuff, but I'm able to like forget bad outings, kind of go through them and stuff from a perspective like, like I said, God doesn't really care. I just want to get better. I want to work on this. So it's easier to like let bad outings roll off my shoulders, kind of forget about them when you're looking through that lens.
Yeah. No, and I totally agree with you on that. And I think my biggest question leading off of that, and it's funny, we were talking about this before you got down here, was you were high school, sign out of the 5th round.
Yeah.
You sign, you do really well in pro ball to kind of start. You had a little bit of a rough patch, end up having surgery, coming back from that. And like you've always produced at a pretty high level. Then you go into last year as our number 2 behind Stroh, but pitch like our ace for the whole season, have your first all-star appearance. Coming into this year, it's a completely different expectation, right?
Yeah.
You're the opening day guy. You're the starter. You're the guy that's supposed to take the ball, lead us to pretty much wins every night, right? Like that's the perspective or the thought. And then you shove your first outing and then get hurt. And then, so that in itself takes its own toll.
Yeah.
And then coming back, and we've had these conversations, like the numbers may not necessarily reflect how you felt or how you've truly thrown the ball. And so what has been the biggest thing for you during the last 3 or 4 outings since you got back?
Yeah, exactly what we're talking about is just taking the outings for what it is. with baseball, especially pitching, like you have to be able to just control the controllable. Like once the ball leaves your hand, like it's just kind of out of your hands. Like, so for me is just kind of minimizing the errors, like just making sure I'm executing as many pitches as I possibly can, and with each outing and stuff. And I feel like with each outing coming back from the injury, I've gotten better and better at it, just minimizing my mistakes and stuff. And I mean, the hitters we're facing, they're good too. I mean, y'all are the best in the world.
Look, we say pitchers drive nice cars too. You know, like,
me and JMO talk about it. Like the game is at an all-time best right now. Like the pitchers, the hitters, just across the board. So
the information.
Like when you do execute a pitch, like the dude can still hit it out of the ballpark, even if it's 2 balls off, like where you were trying to throw it. Like it's just how the game works. So for me, there's comfortability in knowing that, like this is the best of the best. So you just kind of have to like take it for what it is and learn from it and keep moving forward.
Especially, I think it's important for younger kids to hear this too, because when your intent is in the right place and the results don't happen, that's okay. But the fine line is when the mindset or the intent is not where it needs to be and you're getting poor results, that's when you start having to kind of make the adjustments, you know. And it's funny, this game, like you talked about, like if you're not swinging the bat well, but you're swinging at the right pitches, you're hitting the ball hard, you just have nothing to show for it, that's one thing. And like same for you, like you could be making good pitches, but for whatever reason, if you make, let's call it 3 true mistakes in a game and those all get hit really hard somewhere, you know, or for a homer or whatever, you just feel like you can't get out of your own way. You're like, well, last year when I would make a mistake, it wasn't getting hit out.
It was a pop-up last year.
Yeah, now it's a pop-up into the bleachers. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, man. So for you in bouncing back, like, because something I've always admired about you is just like your competitive spirit when you pitch. It's one of my favorite things about you, and I've seen it with all the other good players that I've been around, is this like competitive confidence. Where do you think that came from?
I think I know for a fact it just came from my upbringing. My dad and my brother were ultra competitive. My brother's 5 years older than me. He played college baseball, played basketball, football growing up. My dad played college football at Alabama. We've talked about that and stuff. Roll Tide. So just
we got a northern over here. Don't say
okay.
that too loud.
Okay.
It's okay.
But just growing up in that household, like everything was a competition, and me being the youngest, like I was 5 years younger, I was always having to like try and keep up. So basketball in the yard, horse, baseball in the yard, football in the yard, ping pong in the house, pool, just like anything was always a competition. And I know for a fact, just coming up in that household, that upbringing was definitely so I got to give it to my brother and my dad. It's kind of just how I was brought up. Like everything's a competition.
I think it's kind of interesting talking about like the youngest, like you're the youngest, right? You're the youngest. And I'm going to be interested how we talked about, you know, the correlation of like their parents played in the league. So they like the correlation of that. I wonder what the correlation is of how many MLB guys or pro guys are the youngest of their siblings.
It does. I do think it makes a difference, just because what he's saying is like you have to find out different ways to like compete and out.
Yeah, you got to keep up.
Because like you're 5 years younger. So if your brother's 14 and you're 9,
and I'm playing with his friends.
Yeah, like physically, you're just like, you're no match. Truly,
Exactly.
You're no match. And so, well, what's the one thing I can control, like you're talking about? Like literally my attitude and effort.
Yeah.
Like I can work harder than everyone else to try and keep up. And I mean, it was the same for me, right? My brother's 9 years older, my sister's 7 years older. So whenever I'd be
very good athletes,
whenever I'd play with them out in the yard, whether it was basketball or wiffle ball or whatever, I would have to like ultra compete. Or if they were, you know, I'm at my sister's softball game and we're out somewhere playing wiffle ball with, you know, her sister's friends, like brothers or whatever, they're all still a few years older than me. So the one way to compete is to like ultra compete and figure it out, and iron sharpens iron, you know?
Yeah. It's at the high school level, we always talk about like kids coming up and they'll say, oh, well, he's the youngest. So it's like, oh, okay. Or they'll be like, you have a younger brother? And be like, yeah, I actually have 2 younger brothers. I'm like, okay, well, how good's the youngest? Like, oh, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it checks out.
Yeah, the younger one.
You gotta compete.
Yeah. It's like, you think I'm good? Wait till you see the younger one.
Yeah.
You know, because for whatever reason, they're like mature a little bit beyond.
There's like almost like a stereotype around it. Just like being the younger one, you grew up around that family, the household. Like for me, I was going to all my brother's travel ball tournaments, so I was always around that atmosphere. When he was on the field playing, I was either watching or playing wall ball in the dugout behind it, like just doing different things. When you grow up in that nature and just like, you can't help but be competitive because you're playing with other kids, other siblings that are in the same situation. So, I mean, it's good.
The amount of delays I caused because my tennis ball would end up on the field because it was thrown over the dugout.
Sailed it over the dugout,
yeah. God bless him for listening to this ball hitting the back of the dugout over and over and over again. Yeah.
Oh you didn't have babysitters like
no,
like wasn't a thing. You didn't have
it was a free for all at the park.
Yeah, it was a free for all.
Like old like Adams Park when they would be like, all right, you guys have a doubleheader today, but your first game's not for 3 hours. Like,
the big dirt pile that was always there, and just having dirt clock wars with all your buddies.
Oh yeah,
I mean, you come up with any and every game possible to play. Yeah, I mean there was no option of like, hey, well, can I go over to so-and-so's house? Because it's like, no, you're coming with me. We're going to watch your sister's softball game, and you can figure it out. And I'm running out there with my glove ball, my wiffle ball bat, and my football.
Yeah,
like I got my toolboxes right here, buddy.
Well, there wasn't iPads and all of that.
No.
That makes it sound old. No. But you just went to the park and you had what you had.
Yeah.
It was the good old days.
Yeah. Mom, can you come through? I'm watching your sister.
Yeah.
Why don't you sit here and watch? No.
Can't do that.
Yeah. Just throw me some pop-ups. Let me run back and go catch them.
It just took me back. I remember there's a VHS footage, like home footage. My mom had that huge camera, and she was videoing like my brother's machine pitch game. And all of a sudden, I just like pop up. I'm probably 5 years old. I just pop up right in front of the camera. I'm like, Mom, it's hot. I need a pickle pop. like I need to go get a pickle pop.
Those are good memories.
Oh, you walk in, they're like, all right, son, the concession stand's over there. I'm giving you $2.
$2.
Yeah, you maximize. So you pick whether you want candy,
whatever you want.
You want a water, you want a pickle pop, you name it. You got $2. So figure it out, and that's that.
It's always funny too, like parents where you send their kid off and they're watching their other kid, and then we all come back and we're just dirt head to toe.
Covered in dirt.
What were you doing? How did you get?
I was literally playing in the dirt pile.
I've been going a long time.
Mom, I had to score.
Yeah,
I had to score.
I was sliding into home.
Where was there mud?
Didn't rain.
Yeah,
we had to water the field.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Oh man, it's pure. All right, so take me back a little bit. Obviously, we're talking about childhood. Did you play anything else other than baseball?
I played basketball a lot up until I got to high school. I would have played football. I had really bad migraines growing up, so I kind of stayed away from the football field. Parents kept me away from it. But I would say football was probably like the one I loved most. Like I loved watching it, paying attention to it and stuff. But as far as playing, I played basketball all the way through middle school, stopped once I got to high school, focused on baseball and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. Is your high school a big high school?
It's big in the sense that there's one high school in the entire county. So, yeah, there's
you
only...
guys won a lot of championships.
They just won a state championship. Yeah. They just won. They
really?
They played at the Jackson Braves Stadium that you was talking about. Yeah, they won yesterday. They won a state championship. So that was cool to see. Just everybody excited on Facebook and stuff. But yeah, it's a really good high school. We've had a lot of draft picks out of there and stuff. I think 15, 16 now drafted out of my high school. So it's like a small town. Like the town I grew up in probably only has like 350 people in it. And I go to that elementary school, but every elementary school in the entire county goes to one high school. So it ends up being like a 6A school.
Kind of like it's like kind of like down South Georgia with
I was gonna say
counties and those kind of where it's like everybody from one county funnels to the same high school,
which is insane from where we live.
Because I mean, in Cobb County alone, there's 14 high schools.
Yeah,
like we have.
Yeah.
So if you had one Cobb County team, I mean, they would win state every year. I mean, it
would be a lot of there'd be a lot of people that would never play.
No, yeah, they would. Yeah, they would never ever play, and that's what's interesting too, because the high school I was first at, it was real small, South Georgia. Like the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school were on one like property.
Yeah.
And so it would always be funny. It's like, oh, well, so-and-so is acting up. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to walk across and go handle that. But the county schools is always so interesting because everyone, and I hate to say it just means more. It just means
It
more
does.
down there.
It seems like it
Because,
does.
Yeah, you go to the did they shut down like the town or the square?
Oh yeah, like Friday
yes,
nights,
dude.
like everyone's there watching the football games, the baseball games.
I
Like,
did
it's
not. Cool. My first time ever doing that. They're like, oh yeah, the whole town was shut down. I was like, okay, like,
yeah, all right.
And then I was driving in, literally closed, gone to game, like signs on the businesses.
Yep.
And it's cool because the whole town, like, they really do love it. And then if they're good, like if you guys are good, that's even so. You guys win the state champ. That's probably a big deal.
Yeah, and they're usually pretty good at football. Like I think quarterback's about to go to Notre Dame, but like they're usually good at sports.
Kid from Mississippi going to Notre Dame. What do we got?
We're not happy about it. Not happy about it. 4-star athlete, let's keep him in the SEC. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We got a spot for you, buddy.
Yeah, but like you were saying, like the county just below us is Jackson County, which is like where Biloxi is. They might actually be Harrison County, but it's like all like Ocean Springs. There's like 10 high schools in that one county, and they're all in the same district as us, and we always go down there and play them. It's a weird dynamic, definitely, having just one high school in the entire county, but you end up like becoming really close friends with like people that end up like a guy that lives like an hour away from me, but I end up driving. I'll go stay with him. We'll go hunting, fishing, and go to school the next morning together. Like it's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's how I say that they just put out like a poll for Georgia of like how different schools and how far they have to travel for games. And like we're in South Georgia, I mean, if we were going to go play somebody, it was an hour bus ride minimum. Yeah. Where we live, you know, if our high schools play together,
like
I mean,
30 is about as max as you
30 is max, and it's probably taking us 12 to get from my high school to his high school. Like it's not far at all.
Closest one for us would have been our like neighbor rival, and that was like 25 minutes. But other than that, everyone was like 40 minutes plus.
But I feel like it's cool because it just creates this like sense of community because everyone. I mean, it's kind of like anything that when you really, really dive into it, when you're doing something for more than yourself, it just kind of like is naturally created that way when you have a high school setup like that. I feel like for a whole county, because that is kind of like the pride and joy for everyone there. Like, because Mississippi, there's not really, like, there's not professional sports close.
No, the Braves is the closest team.
The AA Braves.
Yeah.
And they're moving. Mm-hmm. So, it's such an interesting dynamic and like, but it makes sense though because of just you and your personality and like how you view like our team and kind of like your role and everything is very like indicative of kind of how you grew up as well. Like the pride and joy you have for the Cubs and the Cubs org. Like you've been involved in the Cubs org for what, 8 years now? 9 years? How many years?
10. I was drafted in 14. Yeah. So this is my 10th year with them. So yeah, that's something I always kind of not necessarily hold on to, but I always ask questions when people come from other organizations, like you asked you about the Braves, and even when you were in Hillsborough for a little bit, I played against you. So I always ask questions about people coming from other organizations because I'm curious. Like I've been with the Cubs for so long, I only know one way. So like I like to see how other organizations work. Like I talked to Tyler Glass now a little bit, and I was asking him about like how the Rays work because it seems like they've, no matter what the situation was, they've constantly pumped out talent from their farm system. So I was asking them questions about that and stuff. So that's always been something I've been curious about.
Yeah. I mean, every org's different. Every org has their pros and cons. Like there's no org that's perfect. But that's just kind of the beauty of being able to develop a team and a culture and how you can best maximize your strengths as a group so that you can ultimately like win, right? Yeah. Like that's the main goal is to be able to win at the big league level. And obviously we're, well on our way to doing that. And hopefully now that we're kind of getting a little bit more back to like full strength when it comes to position player wise, I know we still got a lot of arms that are banged up, but it is nice because it gives, certain guys chances to kind of make their mark and, maybe have an opportunity that they wouldn't have otherwise, if other guys were healthy.
It's kind of been crazy this year, like the amount of people we've had. Yeah, the amount of people we've had to use thus far through the season. Like you said, never seen it. But it's also showing, it's a good testament to like the kind of depth we've had because of the situation that we are still in, even though like literally from the first game, like I had the hamstring injury. So like we haven't had like a full healthy roster the entire season and we're still in a pretty good situation. So like you said, it's just kind of icing on the cake for when we do get everyone back healthy. And it's going to be fun to like actually play with everyone healthy again.
I know it's almost like if I would have asked you at the beginning of the season, like, hey, Our ace is going to go down in his first outing. We're going to lose 2 critical bullpen pieces to last year. We're going to, have this guy miss time and Seiya and Belly. I'm going to miss some time. Nico's going to miss some time, this, that, and the other. But we'd still be sitting with, for 5 or 6 games or whatever, over 500 at this point in the season. Knowing all of that, everybody would probably be like,
how?
Yeah,
like,
we'll take
sign
it.
me up.
Yeah,
like,
we'll take that.
It. Yeah. And that's what we tried to keep in perspective, too, was, through April, we had won, what was it, 18 games, 19 games?
Historic start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
like, dude, and I got to stop saying we. I'm not involved in the Cubs organization.
but you still rep it.
Invested. You're invested.
Yeah, you guys were still winning games, in tough games too, in close games. Like, you guys were battling through games, holding leads, getting leads back late. Like, you're putting some solid games together, and you didn't have your starting guys. So it's kind of like you're playing with house money almost. You know what I mean?
You just got to find a way to survive those times. Like, because it's going to ebb and flow throughout a year, man. Like, just look at other teams and, even take a team like Texas, for example. Like, won the World Series last year, got immense amounts of talent and just haven't been able to piece it together so far through, 50 games. But the beauty of it all is there's a reason we play 162, right?
Like,
Because it's a marathon.
even last year, like, they weren't even fully healthy in the World Series. Like,
Yeah.
they had DeGrom, like, they had still a lot of guys, big names that were kind of like not playing. So like, that's just kind of baseball in a nutshell. Like, it takes 35 guys, 40 guys throughout a season to kind of get through it. And with situations with what we went through, it kind of makes way in storylines for like people like Shota, like the run he started on, like, things like that start to happen. And that's kind of how you see our record be where it is like things like that happen. Neris has been nails out of the bullpen, just Bush's hot start, like things like that start to happen.
Yeah.
How was y'all's relationship with Shota?
Mine's awesome. I talk to him try to talk to him all the time.
Yeah.
I hardly speak English, so it's so I kind of give the translator a hard time sometimes.
He's sitting there like, I don't know.
He's a king, man. He just like
cool dude, or he seems like
so,
laid back and funny.
He's funny.
Charisma. He has a ton of charisma.
He has so much charisma, dude. Like, he loves it.
Really?
Like on the Pat, he was on the Pat show, and
I listened to it yesterday.
He was just talking about like, throwing at your head, basically.
Yeah,
like,
I put one.
He loves it, and when you watch him like on the mound, like he takes it truly as like a performance. That's how it's a performance.
He takes
for him.
pride in his work.
It's like there's a discipline to it. There's obviously sport, but there's like an art form to it. And like the thing that I find most impressive with Shota is you can tell him something of like, hey, think about it like this. Like, if you're gonna miss here, and it's done immediately. Like, his ability to make in-game adjustments, like, he's obviously been on this incredible stretch, and like there'll be times in like the first or second inning where I'm just kind of like, he doesn't really have it today. You can just kind of tell like he's not really locating. But then you look up and he's thrown 6 innings. He's only given up like 3 hits, and he's had no one scored. And it's like, oh my gosh. Well, because he has this way about him of like, number one, competing, but being able to like say, okay, I'm doing this, I need to do this, and then being able to actually go change and execute in game is like, I've been blown away with that part, just because of all things considered. Like, even for a veteran guy to do that, and I know he's 30 or 31, but being a rookie in this league, which is the best league in the world, and to be able to do what he's been doing and do it with the confidence and charisma, and like, if you get a hit off of him, he's like, kind of like, great job. Like, good for you. Like, I'm just going to get the next guy out. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Something I kind of commend him on, and something I don't think I would be able to do nearly as good as he's doing, is I couldn't picture myself going to a country that I know nothing about, don't know the language, having an interpreter with me. I wouldn't be able to be as comfortable as he is. Like, he came over here. He fully engulfed himself, like, in the community, like what the Cubs are, like went to the hockey game, took their walkout song, made it his walkout song. Like, the things he's doing, it's just like, he's so aware of his surroundings and like who he is. And he's just like meshing it together so beautifully. It's just like, I just commend him on it. Like, it's something I wouldn't be able to do if I was in that situation.
And I know you said you have a question.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm going to piggyback on that too is, he has this like toughness to him that I don't think people realize. Like Shota, even when we signed him, people are like, kind of like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Like at best, he's this. And hearing a little bit more about his like backstory and, like he's had to grind his like kind of whole baseball life and had to figure things out. And kind of we were talking about like being the youngest in a way. I don't know if he's the youngest in his family, but he's had to grind and work his way to be as good as he is. And I think that with that comes a lot of like, number one, experience, but he's like calloused. You know what I mean? Like there's not much that can get to him because he's already went through it. And it just goes to show you who he is and like the toughness that he has, not only mentally, but physically, and just how he's able to kind of manage being in an uncomfortable situation, being in a country where he doesn't speak the language. I do think it's nice that we have obviously Toy, who's Seiya's translator, Edwin, which is his translator, and then Now, who's one of our video guys, is Japanese. So they have like, there's 4 or 5 guys that they feel like comfortable with all the time. But still, man, it's like so impressive what he's doing.
Well, how impressive is it? This is not my question, but how do you think his age has a lot to do with his success? Like take a younger guy like Paul. Steve, you know what I mean? Like
the way I look at it is he's a seasoned rookie. So like he kind of already went through his ups and downs and like his seasoning over in the other league or whatever. So when he came over here, like he already has a great idea of like who he is, what makes him successful, and like what he's going to be able to do. Whereas like a rookie, like you get caught up, like you've been going through the minor leagues your entire career to get to the big leagues, and now you got to figure out what's going to keep you in the big leagues. Like there's like a whole different kind of process, whereas he's like 30 years old, already kind of figured that stuff out. So I think that kind of plays
and trusting that too, though.
Yeah.
That's like, because it'd be so easy to come over here and them say, okay, well, this isn't good enough. You need to do this better. You need to do that. And I feel like they've done a really good job of saying like, no, you do these 2 things like really well, just like you. You have a really good fastball and a really good slider. Let's maximize that as much as we can. And if we need to throw this or this every so often, we will. But we're going to keep it simple. And he does a great job of executing the simple. And when he misses, when he misses, he's not missing down the middle.
Right.
If it's a splitter, he's missing down or off. And if it's a fastball, he's missing up or in. And with his unique profile of pitches, and it's just really, really impressive, man. Like it's fun.
His stuff is unbelievable, and it's kind of like when he's on, it's like good luck, like because like you said, he's not missing.
Yeah.
And like he's not making the mistake where you can't hurt him, and kind of like you said that like when he doesn't necessarily have it sometimes and he does miss, like his stuff is still so good, it's still hard to hit.
My favorite story is in spring, he pitched against the A's and he was scheduled to pitch again and it was going to be against the A's. So they wanted him to just throw on like a backfield. Dude, he was pitching against these like 19-year-olds.
Oh.
And he
long day
there was like he pitched like 12 outs or something. And it was like 10 punch outs.
Mm-hmm.
He picked a guy off, was the 11th out. And then there was like a walk and somebody hit a ball, but they passed the runner in front. So that was the other out. It was like a pickoff and a passed runner. And it was so funny because they're like, yeah, after the game, they're like, man, Shota, like you were disgusting. Like nobody had a chance. And the only thing he could say was he was sorry that he walked a guy. He was like, I'm sorry I like walked this one guy, like, but that's just the beauty of Shota.
Yeah, on the Pat McAfee show, he talked about, they did a pretty good job. They're a hilarious crew, but they're talking to him about coming from Japan to here and the differences. And he said he had to learn how to pitch to like American style hitters in a different way. I'm just curious. Obviously, everyone's in the league, and not that you're not sharing your stuff, but as we've learned, you guys just kind of figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was there any conversation with you on how maybe styles on how to pitch guys? Because he was saying where, in Japan, he could miss in, and they're probably going to foul it off or whatever, not hit it. Where here, if he misses in, 70% of the guys might put it over the fence.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the thing.
Yeah, when I talked to him like the other day, he's always asking questions about different situations and stuff. Like right before we came to St. Louis, he was supposed to throw yesterday. He was asking just like how the weather is, how it is pitching here. So he's like constantly engaged and trying to like better himself for his next outing and stuff. So that's really cool to see. But he was asking like how the St. Louis mound is, like how it is pitching. So I was telling him, I was like, it can, be hot, humid, and like whatever, just laying it out for him. But yeah, kind of like what you said is there's different lineups in this league and stuff, and kind of what he was saying, like if you miss in or miss over the plate, like they can hurt you in this league, where I can't really speak for pitching in the Japanese league, but yeah, like the Braves lineup who we just faced, that's a really potent lineup, really good lineup, but that's one of them lineups, like if you do make a mistake, make sure you're missing to the the area that you were going to. So just trying to explain things like that to him and stuff, and he's already doing like a great job of it and stuff, like he's already on top of everything, but just kind of reinforcing what he's doing. And like when he's throwing his bullpens, I'm out there watching, like letting him know, like choi, which is very good in Japanese. I always like choi.
Yeah, and Jan's been really good with him on that as well, just like walking him through like stylistically and even just like body size and style of guys here versus there, and what the intent and style of hitting is in the league over in Japan versus here can be different for certain guys. So what's the best way to maximize going through lineups here versus there, because there is a little bit of a difference, and he's obviously done it at a pretty like flawless job so far.
And he was talking about the WBC because I think he started the championship game. And so he was talking about how, he kind of got some information, I'll call it, from facing us in that. Would you two ever play? I mean, you I don't know.
Didn't get asked.
Haven't got asked.
But would you play in it?
I give D-Row a hard time all the time.
Would you play in it?
I would.
When is it?
It depends.
When is it?
The next one would be 27.
But when is it in the year? It's early, right?
It's in spring.
So that's what I'm saying. So you have to be baseball ready.
It would probably depend on the workload and what I did the season prior. If it was, say, like a situation this year, like I had some time off in the beginning of the season, I still wanted to get some innings at the end of the season, it's something I would do.
A lot of it's like just like life timing too. If I was not asked, and I mean, I obviously would love to. How could you not? To be able to obviously represent your country, to win something that cool, last year would have been a really challenging time to do it, just because it was
everything you had going on.
New team. Like I need to spend as much, like I committed to this team in Chicago to win a World Series, so I can't be doing things that are necessarily going to take my attention and time away from that, especially being new. So yeah, I mean, it just kind of depends on the situation, the timing of.
Do you think it's something like at the end of y'all's career, let's say you don't get a chance to do it, is that something where you're like, I kind of, because it is a special thing, right? Or to wear the United States colors and to represent, and it's a whole completely different energy that goes along with it.
I did get to do it in college,
right?
So at least I kind of have like checked that box off, having done it in college. But yeah, I mean, it would obviously be a pretty unique and cool thing to do. Especially because Mal does all the cool things with the women's team. So
yeah, and I agree. It's something I would totally like love to tell my son. I pitch for Team USA, hopefully win it all and stuff like that. Would be amazing. But for me, like I said, it was kind of like would depend on like the timing, the workload, life.
If you threw more innings than you ever have,
it probably wouldn't be the best idea. Leading into spring training.
Or I mean, some guys I know too are like, I don't need to ramp up, or like this is my last year before contract year, or like I don't need to risk putting myself, in harm's way.
There's a lot of different things.
Do a lot of guys say no? I feel like our lineup's always stacked.
It's more arms than
position guys.
Yeah,
position guys is a little bit easier to ramp up, just because you can get a little bit more of that workload versus like, I mean, and we can get into this too, just like talking about arm injuries, you're already doing something that's really unnatural, of throwing a ball and throwing it really hard. So doing that year round is really challenging, and so that's why like it's kind of a carousel of arms, and I wish that they would honestly do a little bit of a better job of like allowing the roster to be a little bit bigger for
Well,
pitching, you know.
That's why it's so hard to like the timing of the World Baseball Classic
Yeah.
is so hard to like pinpoint because there's not really a great time for it as far as pitchers go, because even like if you do it before spring training, that like guys are kind of just getting back into throwing. And yeah, it's weird. It's like you almost have to like know about it, months and months in advance.
And they're stressful pitches. It's not like
it's I mean it's a
like you're going
huge
off the first
event.
spring
Yeah,
training
well, like
outing and,
guys are like usually better than they like ever been
Yeah.
during that time because they've had a little time off, higher like intensity and stuff. So yeah,
So I'm gonna talk about arm injuries.
yeah, let's do it.
You had Tommy John 2017, so 3 years after you were drafted. What in your mind is the reason we're seeing this, like, I don't know if you want to call it a spike, but a very much an uptick in arm injuries kind of across baseball?
I think it's because kids are chasing velo at younger and younger ages. I think I saw something on Twitter the other day. They had a top 10 velos at 14 years old, and the kid was throwing 94, and the kid under him was 93, 92, and it was like the top 10 were like, the bottom one was like 88. So I think that has a lot
Can you
to
imagine seeing 94?
No.
Dude,
14?
No. I would leave. I would no.
Hillgrove faced a kid.
It's the high school he went to.
In the high school I went to, in the Elite 8 maybe, or 16, one of the two. And I think the kid's an Auburn commit and was throwing 95.
Yeah.
Like, I go to the game or whatever, and I'm sitting behind the dish, and he strolls out there, first pitch, pop. I was like, and I look over the perfect game guy, he goes, 95. And I was like, holy cow. Like, the hardest I've ever seen a high school throw, and was spotting. Like, I'm looking at these poor sophomores, I'm like.
So, like, and that kind of goes into it. Like, for that kid to be that good already, he's probably thrown an immense amount of pitches over a Rapsodo at 100% effort to get that good already. So, like, therefore, like, you're kind of already getting into that, like, mileage on your car almost, but we're speaking about the arm. You're kind of already getting into that mileage of, like, if you're throwing that hard, it's going to happen at some point. Like, it's just kind of, like you said, it's an unnatural move.
Well, and for me, the details of it all too is, okay, why would a younger kid be chasing velo? Well, when we were in high school, I graduated in 12, you were in 14.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit 90, right, as a pitcher, you got to check by your name, by scouts, college, pro ball, whatever. You got to check by your name, because it was like, okay, he's got a good arm. And nowadays, because of, in my opinion, pay structure and success and opportunities, if you throw hard, you get more opportunities.
Totally.
If you strike more guys out, you get more opportunities. You get more, contracts or job opportunities. So, well, if you're trying to have a career, why not chase the best stuff in velo as possible, whether that's a certain type of fastball, a certain type of slider that you spin at a crazy amount. And so if you chase these red lines essentially all the time, the body, like we said, is already doing an unnatural move in throwing a ball. And if you're chasing these red line type of numbers every time you touch a mound, something's got to give. And I think we're seeing that with the arm. And, I don't think it's a secret, like, in the league nowadays, right? The common thought is, if we could strike 27 guys out, then there's no luck that can be involved with a broken bat single, or if you strike 27 guys out, no one's going to score. You know what I mean? So the thought process goes away from contact to striking guys out.
Yeah.
Which, how do you strike guys out at a high clip? Well, you have disgusting stuff. Or, even somebody like Shota, who's got very unique stuff, but the velo's not there. He's only punching out, like, his K per 9 is 9. He's like pretty much 1 an inning, right? And that's not like a crazy rate by any means. And just the analytic world is so funny because it values the 12 and 13 K per 9 guys.
That's my question is, would you rather, like, does velo really matter, or does getting guys out matter? So, like, do you think there's going to be a switch in baseball where we work away from velo as much to movement, location,
No.
You just think it's going to stay high velo? And you think
I don't think it
location
moves from
movement gets
velo,
better?
but I think the game maybe just starts maybe trying to do a better job of being able to quantify like what Shota is doing, or guys that are able to pitch and like use their pitches the proper way, like the guys that are throwing like myself that are like low to mid 90s, but my ball moves, I'm able to do different things with it. Like maybe have a better way of identifying pitchers like that so that they're able to get to the big leagues faster, develop faster, things like that. Maybe that changes, but as far as chasing velo, like they're never gonna stop doing that because of like what he's saying, like the controlling the controllable. If you're striking 27 guys out, there's no control over the game. You controlled it, kind of deal. But like if they're putting the ball in play, you're leaving options on the table.
I mean, yeah, that's how it was explained to me early on when I started seeing the change in it was if we never have to play defense, that's great because there's no luck involved.
Yep.
You know, there will be zero luck because we've struck everybody out. And so I don't know, I just kind of see the future a little bit. Like we all know MLB wants at some point to go to some type of automated zone. Well, good luck, because it can either go one of two ways. It's harder to control power stuff. And so if the walk rate goes crazy high, which if you look in like AAA and stuff, that's why I don't overreact to like, well, this guy walks a ton of people. It's like, yeah, because their strike zone is literally the size of that magazine right there. And it's non-negotiable, you know, but at the same time, if you're going to have to actually throw it in there and get people out, you better do it with some really nasty stuff. And so it's going to be really interesting to see like kind of where things go, because it's funny. I feel like we as an org have done a really good job of blending the two of like, we have a lot of guys that can really, really pitch, move the ball, know how to execute, know where to execute with multiple pitches, and not just pure stuff. Now we do have some pure stuff guys more on the back end, but we've been able to kind of do it in a little bit more of a unique fashion. But I think you've just seen across baseball, man, like league OPSs are way down, league averages are way down offensively. You see a lot of really great players struggling because I think pitching will always be ahead of hitting in terms of information. At the end of the day, no matter how proactive I want to be as a hitter, whether I'm sitting on a pitch, I'm, wanting to hit this or that or whatever, I'm still having to react, where the control is always in the pitcher's hand. And so now I just think that guys are so good at maximizing or exploiting a weakness of a hitter that they're just going to constantly throw something that you may or may not be able to hit consistently. And you look across the league and like you see great players kind of grinding their way through it.
Well, and that's why I'm asking about the change in philosophy and how you pitch, because, all right, let's say they do go to an automated zone and it is smaller and your hard velo is harder to control. Will you not have to move away from that to an extent to – it's like you say all the time, like umpires missing calls.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's too good for them to do that, right? And then as good as he is, the chances of him throwing it to one location 3 straight times is like not very high.
Yeah. I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it, though, is if the strike zone's super small and you have to throw it in this smaller zone, if your stuff's not that good, it's going to get whacked.
Yep.
So
that's what I'm saying.
there's 2 thoughts of like, okay, would you rather do the power and hope that you can get away with some walks, or would you try and hope that you can just miss barrels? So
but that
it's
also
really
changes like your information loading as a hitter, because the zone is smaller, so
And
I don't have to battle.
So
some of
that's
the stuff.
exactly what I was about to say. When I went on my rehab assignment to AAA, I pitched with it. And
the automatic zone or the challenge?
The automated strike zone. So he had the thing in his ear. I didn't know. They told me I was throwing on the ABS, but I wasn't aware of like what was happening. Like, so I'm glad I didn't like argue a call or something. But like after the fact, I was like, oh, he had like the thing in his ear, and then but something I did notice, like hitters' approaches they're changing according to the strike zone. Like I threw those multiple pitches I threw in the strike zone. He called strike, and I'm like, it's weird that he didn't swing at that. Like
Interesting.
It was like, because like I'm used to being in the big leagues. I'm like, if I throw that pitch, it's swung at. Like
right.
But it's taken strike one, and I feel like their approach is changing because of the strike zone. So kind of what you're saying, it's going to be interesting, like the years moving forward, like how big the
'Cause
approaches change.
Why would you not use that as a hitter? Like,
That's what they're doing. That's
the
kind of
ball's
what that's what they're
moving that
doing.
much,
Yeah, I mean,
like,
the zone
I'm
is
not going to
tiny.
chase.
Yeah.
Hey, how many accidental pitches did you leave arm side that you were trying to go in that got called strikes?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was trying to go arm side, like inner part of the plate. It's like right down the middle, and they just take it, and it's a strike. And I'm like, I'm literally sitting there like, I'm so used to that being swung at.
Yeah.
Like, it was weird.
So it's going to change the entire game, because if I'm a hitter and they put that in, I'm thinking, oh.
All right, I got a really interesting question. If there was one rule change that you would like to see in baseball, what would it be?
I mean, there are times where there's a runner on and the pitch clock is a little fast. Like, you want to check the runner twice, 3 times. Like, you just can't because say you shake to the third pitch you want to throw. So that takes time. And then you come set, you look. You don't want to do a 1 look because then he gets an easy jump. There's like moments in the game where that feels a little off. Like, it doesn't feel like I'm actually playing the game. It kind of feels like I'm playing the game of the clock. I would say maybe with runners on, 3 more seconds or something. Like, if
you just go back to what we had last year.
Yeah. That's the only thing I can think of that, like, self-consciously I think about during a game. Other than that, like, there's not too many things I like have a problem with. Like, I kind of like that the game's kind of.
I think the pitch clock's done a great job.
Yeah, it has.
The one. This isn't mine that I changed, but to your point, I think that y'all should just be able to get 1 step off per hitter.
Yeah, that's another one. That's another one. Or if I step, like, nobody on, I step off, it can, like, reset the clock.
Because you get your 1, I get my 1.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because when the first year they did the pitch clock, there was a moment, like, I was like, shake, shake, shake. It was on 1 second. Tried to step off, didn't reset, and I just, like, stepped back on and just, like, threw something over the plate just so I wouldn't get a ball, and I think I ended up throwing a strike, and everybody just
everyone freaked out.
Everyone was like, "What was that?" But like, moments like that are going to happen when new things are in the game.
Do you have any?
No, because that is like the pitch clock is the same kind of talk as the strike zone, right? Like, as a runner on, I know that the clock is running, right? And so you can time, like, look at Ronald. Now, Ronald does a great job anyways, but you take a guy like that who's swiping bags, and now you're saying, I get this extra, and during the regular season, whatever. But when you start talking, like, playoffs, valuable, meaningful pitches, like, every pitch matters in the game, within the game, like, that changes everything. And the same thing that's going to happen with the strike zone, right? It's like playing MLB The Show. You take certain pitches because it's a ball.
So with this strike zone, I've kind of opened up this concept. If they start going to this automated strike zone, you've seen them do it, like, on I don't know if it's Fox, TBS, or what, but, like, it turns into like a 3-dimensional object, almost like a floating trash can. So if it turns into something like that, like, I feel like you're completely reinventing, like, what throwing strikes is. Like, you can technically throw something that's like,
oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So, like,
I've seen
does the line kind of get like drawn with that?
I've seen the one that clips the bottom. That
and it's in the dirt. It's so like, where does that line get drawn?
We've never really changed the definition of a strike zone. Like, we haven't changed the definition of a strike zone since the game was created, really. The one that I would change is, I think that we need to find a better way to, like, a play at the plate and a guy slides feet first. It's, like, impossible to touch the plate's in the ground. It's the only base that's in the ground.
Yeah.
I wish that there was some type of way to, if you slide into the plate, if your foot, like, it should almost be like breaking a barrier. Like, if your foot,
goal line,
goes over the line.
Yes.
Yeah.
And no, it's not like you can, like, run by and, like, go like this. Or, you know what I mean? Like, you run in and you go like this. Or, like, that's not how it works. If you slide into the plate, if your foot goes
over it,
or, and I know it worked in our favor, but, like, when we played the Mets this year with Pete,
Pete,
like, that's kind of a tough one, man. Like, he got to the plate.
Yeah.
And if
tough.
If it was a base, he would be on the base.
Yeah.
But it's a plate and it's in the ground. It's kind of an interesting, like, and I really do think that would help with some injuries and stuff too, because I slide headfirst into home because that's the only way I can touch the plate.
Yeah.
So maybe it just kind of protects everybody. My other fun one would be if we played music the whole game.
Yeah.
DJ Dan's needs it.
Like NBA games.
Yeah, like NBA games.
I do.
Shota on the mound and you just hear defense.
I do like how Wrigley though, like they kind of don't do like the normal ballpark like
Entertainment,
entertainment
We
between
talked about
innings.
that.
Like you kind of just hear the organ playing, you hear like the crowd, like that kind of stuff at Wrigley, like kind of holds a place in my heart. Like
For sure. I love it.
But like the Braves, they had the oblivious cam where they go around and people aren't paying attention. They just hold it on them. Like that was hilarious to me. Like stuff like that
Or
kills
the
me.
freeze.
Yeah.
The freeze racing. Yeah. No, this is a great talk.
Yeah, I
Little
do.
ball talk.
Good
yeah,
chop.
I do. Yeah, man, I do love the old school feel of Chicago. Like when I'm taking my wife's dad up to a game next weekend, and the last time he was there was like in the 80s when they played in the playoffs somewhere or whatever. So he's like talking to me. I was like, dude, I'm gonna see if we can get up to a game. What? And he just talks like it's just baseball. It's just like, that's all it is.
It
It's
is
just
baseball
ball.
and it's pure.
Yeah.
It's just ball.
It's just ball. He's like, and I love that nothing more. He grew up in Boston. He's a Boston guy, but
It's like in its purest form.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good.
All the green too. Like it's just outside. Like it's awesome.
The
Wrigley's
breeze
the
coming
best.
in.
Yeah, Wrigley's the best.
Yeah, that was good.
Hey, brother.
Hey.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Appreciate it.
Name your podcast again.
Steele the Show. It's a Barstool podcast. Me and Marty Mush do it. It's about once a week. Love to have you on at some
Brother,
point.
I'll be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for
I'll be
having
there.
me on here.
Yeah, man,
Nice.
absolutely.
Love the show.